Today, we'll be building this beautiful modern bed frame. Come join us on our adventure. We started this project with a run to our local hardwood dealer where we picked up some gorgeous sapelli boards and poplar. The sapelli was used for the visible parts of the bed frame and the poplar used for the mattress support boards.
We started by laying out our boards and referencing our plans to determine the size the boards will need to be. We then wiped down the boards with mineral spirits to identify the best grain patterns to showcase on the exterior of the bed frame. It's good to use mineral spirits to wipe down instead of water, as the mineral spirits evaporate and don't add extra moisture to the wood.
After locating the beautiful grain, we marked out our chosen sections and took our boards to the miter saw to cut them to length.
We left the boards long to get perfectly square cuts on our table saw later. Unfortunately, we had to buy boards that were quite a bit wider than we needed due to limited stock. So wide, in fact, that our miter saw couldn't actually make the full cut on this one, so I did a little traditional woodworking for a few seconds. Alright, maybe it took me more than a few seconds.
With the boards rough cut, it was over to the table saw to use our handy-dandy crosscut sled to clean up both ends of these boards. When dealing with boards this large, we recommend clamping them to the sled's fence and having someone help maneuver them to prevent the sled from binding. Since the boards are so long, it definitely helps to have a side table to lend support. And if you don't have someone to help you, adding a few rollers will make feeding the board significantly easier. With the ends cleaned up, we then ripped the boards to width. We started by leaving them a little wide when removing the bulk of the material, and then came back with a light pass on each side to straighten the edge as they are easier to handle. We're also going to be ripping our leg pieces down to size. We are leaving them about a ½ inch wider than we need them to have plenty of material later. This ensures we can get them cleaned up after gluing.
Since we bought our wood from a wholesaler, we got poplar boards in a variety of widths. These are just going to be mattress support boards, so we weren't too picky about the final width dimension and adjusted our fence to minimize our scrap. This was also the perfect opportunity for Amanda to get some more experience with the table saw. Now, since this is going to take a minute, it's probably a good time to let you know that you can find complete, detailed instructions on this build on our website, along with the full plan set. If you feel like we are moving too quickly here, you'll find the in-depth information you are looking for by following the link below this video to our website's article.
Next, we cleaned up the faces of our boards with our planer. Since we have a rather small shop, all of our benchtop tools are set up so they can be flipped up or down as needed. First is our leg pieces. The key here is to flatten the faces so we get a good glue joint and remove enough material that we end up at the final dimension needed after gluing.
With those done, we moved on to the bigger boards. It's really important here to keep track of the grain direction so you don't get any tear out on the faces of your boards. A little bit of extra time here to plan your cuts can make a big difference in your final product. Finally, we give all of the platform boards a quick pass just to remove the rough surfaces or any defects from the face of each board and prepare them for sanding.
After hauling all our freshly made mulch to the garden bed, it's time to glue up the legs. We did our best here to match the different pieces' colors and grain patterns to hide the seam. Spread out the glue on the face of each board with your built-in glue spreader. Match up the faces, and then clamp everything together and let it dry. You'll know you used enough glue and are getting a good joint if you see the squeeze out the whole way around the seam.
To get a good consistent taper on the legs, we used a tapering jig. We printed off the template included in the plan set and taped the pieces together. We then used it to position a set of blocks for the leg pieces to reference. Since our table saw can't make the full cut in one pass, we set up a second set of blocks to reference the opposite side of the cut. I used the painter's tape and superglue trick because I don't really want to drive screws into my tapering jig, and plywood doesn't grow on trees. You know what I mean.
With the stop blocks in place, we can now place the legs against them and make repeatable cuts. First on one side, and then the other. When making the second taper cut, it can help to tape the offcut from the first taper back onto the leg, and in order to support it through the second set of cuts. Don't worry too much if you get some misalignment in these cuts. You can always sand it out later.
The next step is probably the most difficult part of the entire project. We routed pockets into the leg pieces so that we could attach them to the corners of the bed frame. The easiest way to do this is with a router and a template. We cheated a little bit here and 3D printed the template, but you can easily make yours out of MDF or 1/4-inch plywood using the template included in the plan set. Just cut it out, paste it on, and cut it out again. Once the template is secured in place with painter's tape and super glue, or double-sided tape, we used a templating bit to follow along it and cut out the pocket progressively deeper. Make sure to take small passes and take your time to prevent any blowout. Since we don't own a plunge router yet, we had to switch out to a few bigger sizes of templating bits before we got to the final depth. Yeah, this was a slow process, but it is the defining point of the design, so it'll be worth it in the end, I promise. It's at this point that I'd like to take a minute to thank today's sponsors, Granddad's Tools. Thank you, Granddad, for everything that you've given to us over the years. It means a lot.
All right, with that side done, we popped off the template and did the other side. Just like the first side, we worked our way down to the full depth. But because our router doesn't quite have enough travel, we had to use a chisel to clean up the last little bit. It's worth noting that if you don't have a router, you can do this with an oscillating multi-tool or chisels, but really, just use a router. It's much easier, and you'll thank yourself when you're done.
Since we were already playing with the router, why not add a pocket to the platform boards for the center support beam? No template here. Just lay it flat, clamp some scrap wood on to use as a guide for the router's outer edge, and attach a simple straight cut bit. A couple of passes later, and we had a beautiful pocket for the fasteners to fit into. Now, you're gonna pretend you didn't just see me vertically routing a pocket into the assembled bed frame, because there's no way I would forget to add the pocket first. As long as we're clear on that, it's time to assemble the bed. I start by picking out the prettiest face of each board and then make sure that that face is facing outward and upward. And then when I think I've got it all figured out, I do the smart thing and I go and get my wife to make sure she agrees with my decision. Once that's sorted, we made sure to label the ends of these boards so we can match them back up later on.
Once we had these boards laid out, we screwed them together. We will upgrade these to threaded inserts in a minute, but we just use screws for now. We started by measuring the depth of the pocket in the leg and marked the screw locations to ensure all the screws are hidden inside the leg. Once all the holes are marked, we squared up the boards and aligned the edges and clamped them into place. We used a drill block to ensure we drilled straight into the board. It's especially important to pre-drill a hole since we are so close to an edge and we don't want to split the boards. We then added a countersink that's big enough to sink our fasteners later on. This way they sit flush. With those in place, we finally drove screws into each of the holes to secure this corner before repeating the process on the rest of the bed frame. Now, to put the modern into this modern bed frame, we are going to get a little crazy. That's right, I'm talking about chamfers. We added a large chamfer around the top outer edge of the bed frame. We did this while it's all screwed together, so the chamfer from one board flows right into the next. The best way to do this is with a router, but you could also do it with a bell sander or a plane.
A few months ago, that's exactly what I would have done. I received this router from my granddad, but never took the time to learn how to use it. Now that I have, I wish I'd learned sooner. A router is such an amazing and versatile tool, and now I'm on the hunt for a plunge router and a trim router. So if you haven't picked one up yet, give it a shot. It will completely change your capabilities. I mean, look at this chamfer. That is a nice chamfer. Ignore that burn mark. It'll sand out. With the bed frame done, I wanted to add the same size chamfer to the leg pieces. So I made the terrible decision to clamp my router to a stack of wood. This was unnecessarily dangerous, as that clamp loosened up from the vibrations of the router. Just use a router table and remeasure the chamfer. It's safer that way.
With the chamfers done, we changed over to roundovers. Believe it or not, you don't actually have to pick just one. We added a 1/4-inch roundover to all 4 edges of the platform boards and an 1/8-inch roundover to the other 3 edges of the bed frame boards. This allowed for smooth, soft edges and a higher quality look. With everything profiled, we then test fitted the legs. We found that a few of them were rather snug, but it was easy enough to clean up. We used a chisel to remove the bulk material, followed by a rasp to smooth our novice chisel work, and finally, sandpaper to smooth out the rasp marks. If only it happened as quickly in real life as it does in this clip. It took some time, but getting the perfect fit was worth it. The leg in place, we marked out the position for the attachment screws. These will be swapped out for the threaded inserts later on as well. We chose to use threaded fasteners for this build because we needed the ability to take it apart and make it as compact as possible for moving and shipping. This meant we couldn't glue it together, and we don't trust screws to stay tight over time, especially if it's been assembled and disassembled a time or two. We'd never used threaded fasteners before, but it's a pretty straightforward process.
To start this process, we marked the hole locations to place 1 screw on each face and avoid the screws holding the frame boards together currently. Also, we made sure to stay far enough away from the leg's edge so that the threaded fastener doesn't break through the edge of the leg. With the hole locations marked, we then pre-drilled the hole for the fasteners. Getting the angles right here was a little tricky, and you can see our drill leaves a little black mark on one of the boards. Thankfully, this is nothing that a little sandpaper can't clean up. After drilling through the frame board, we dropped the leg back in place and transferred the pilot hole to the leg as well. We were extra careful here not to accidentally drill through the entire leg. Once the holes were in place, we drove a couple of screws in just to ensure the leg felt tight and secure. Now it's time to repeat this same kind of process for the center support. There was a slight bow in one of the frame boards, so this center support helps to push everything back into alignment. With the center support in, we measured and marked the locations for the holes. We tried to center the fasteners in the pocket we made and ensure they were evenly spaced. We used the drill block to ensure the hole is perpendicular to the board and drill a 1/8-inch pilot hole. We followed this up with a countersink and made sure it was big enough to fit the fastener's head, so the fastener's head would end up flush with the board. With the pilot hole and countersink in place, we enlarged the holes to fit the fastener and threaded insert. We were using 1/4-20 fasteners and found that it helped to oversize the hole for the fastener to ensure that there was room for misalignment without causing binding. We went with a 5/16 hole for the bolt. The threaded fastener also required a large hole. This can vary by manufacturer and wood species. We found that a 23/64 hole worked well for the 2 types of threaded fasteners that we had. We recommend you always test in a piece of scrap wood first.
With the drilling complete, we vacuumed out any debris in the holes, and then added a little super glue to each hole to secure the threaded fastener. These types of inserts are installed with a hex key. If you have the hex key extension for a socket wrench, this will make installation a lot easier. For the flanged inserts, it helps to add a small chamfer to the hole so the flange sits flush with the wood surface. You don't want it to sit proud of the surface or it will affect the fit. You can also buy the flangeless threaded inserts that can be sunk deeper in and ensure you have a flush fit. Once the inserts are in, we dropped the center support back in place and tested screwing it down. If you have difficulty threading in the screws, it's possible that you need to retap the threaded inserts. Unfortunately, we found that every one of the first batch of inserts we bought needed to be retapped, but we eventually got the inserts to work.
Next, we add threaded inserts to the legs. The hardest part about this is we had to drill the pilot holes at an angle to keep them away from the edges of the legs. This meant that we had to match the angle when drilling the threaded inserts. If you transfer the pilot hole to its full depth, then that will make things easier. However, be sure to step up your drill bit sizes in small increments to preserve the angle. You'll see we went through several sizes here to get up to the final size. We also make sure to mark each bit with tape so we didn't accidentally drill too deep. One of these days I'm going to invest in a proper set of stop collars. There is a lot of potential for error when using the tape method.
You'll see we use one of these silver flange threaded inserts. Unfortunately, the flange wanted to pull the insert into being perpendicular to the surface. This caused misalignment later when we tried to assemble the bed frame. We eventually had to remove all the inserts and replace them with a flangeless insert from a different brand. We had to retap every single one of these silver ones, but the flangeless worked perfectly with no cleanup. We'll leave a link to the good brand in the description section below.
And finally, we moved on to the last set of threaded inserts. These go into the frame boards to hold the frame together. It's the same process as before. Drill, countersink, super glue, and install. Now it's time for everyone's favorite part. Sanding. Sanding.
Don't forget to water pop before sanding with each grit. This helps the board absorb the finish more evenly and evens out color variance. It also really helps to bring out the grain and shows if you missed any residue that needs sanding off.
We actually already sanded 80 grit after planing. This way we wouldn't be removing too much material after the edge profiling step. We didn't want to accidentally sand away half of the 1/8 inch roundovers trying to get a stubborn area flat. Now we're going to sand with 120 and 180 grit, making sure to water pop in between. The pencil line helps make sure we aren't sanding too much or too little in any given area, and the light helps to illuminate any scratches that need addressing. If you haven't tried the 3M Extract Cubitron 2 sandpaper, then I highly recommend giving it a shot. It significantly speeds up the process and delivers incredibly smooth results that I have just never gotten out of cheaper sandpaper. I'll leave a link to these in the description below as well. After the final sanding grit, it was time to clean the boards. Start with a shop vac and brush to remove the majority of the sanding dust before proceeding to the cleaner. Rubio does have its own specific cleaner that they recommend, but mineral spirits work just as well. Make sure you choose odorless or low VOC mineral spirits unless you want to be using a respirator. We grabbed a piece of an old shirt and wiped down each piece fully. It can take most of a day for the pieces to fully dry out, so it helps to set up a fan blowing across the pieces.
One of the best parts about this process is seeing the grain come alive. The mineral spirits enhance the grain more than water popping does, so this is always an exciting moment. It's finally time for one of the most satisfying parts of the whole build, finishing. We used Rubio Monocoat oil plus 2C for this build. Since we wanted the bed frame to match our dresser, we elected to darken it a bit by using Rubio's black color. We tested several color options on several species of woods before settling on this combination. We have a whole article showing these results if you're interested. We'll share the link to that as well. The Rubio Monocoat has quickly become our favorite finish since we first used it a few months ago. You can use the oil all by itself, but it takes weeks to fully harden. To help speed up the process, mix the oil with an accelerator in an approximately a 3-to-1 ratio, and it'll be fully cured in a few days. A large syringe is very helpful here for measuring out the mixture. If you're wondering how much you need to mix up for the bed frame parts, we made it easy for you. Just hop over to our blog article for a convenient table that breaks down all the math for you.
Once mixed, application is pretty easy. Simply squirt a little on your piece, trowel it around, and then buff it all in. It doesn't take much to cover the pieces, so the higher price isn't as bad as it seems. After that, you let the pieces sit for a few days and it forms a hard wax surface that protects the boards while still feeling soft to the touch. The best part is that it's extremely forgiving and doesn't mind that we applied it in a dusty shop. It didn't affect the finish at all. Another great feature of Rubio Monocoat is that it goes on almost as easily as stain since it just soaks into the wood and you wipe away any excess. Speaking of stain, we just gave our poplar slats a coat of dark stain we had on hand. No need to use the more expensive product on them. I mean, unless you want to.
A few days later, the boards were dried and ready for assembly. We've got our little helper with us to supervise and make sure we do it right. The first thing we did was attach the mattress support rails. Since these don't have to be removed for transport, we just screwed them into place with a couple of holes we had pre-drilled earlier. Then we brought in the headboard and footboard pieces to attach them. Thanks to the threaded fasteners, assembly becomes so easy. A toddler can do it. The legs drop into place to be installed with threaded inserts as well. Then we brought in the center support bar. A couple bolts later, we were ready to flip this bed frame over. We'd be lying if we said this didn't make us a little nervous. For one thing, our ceiling isn't very high, and we only had a few inches of clearance. But it went perfectly. Teamwork makes the dream work.
All that's left now is to install the slats. I'd like to take a moment to say, if you've enjoyed this video, if you've found any of this content helpful, and if it's inspired you to build something, or if you'd just like to see more of our future builds, please consider subscribing to our channel. It'll really help us to grow and to keep producing videos like this. Alright, with this build done, it's time to celebrate and enjoy these beauty shots. What do you think of the finish for this modern bed frame? Do you prefer light wood or dark wood? Let us know in the comments below.
Want to see the headboard that we designed for this bed frame? Then check out this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.